This is a Socialist News and Views special interview.
I'm Nick Schillingford, coming to you from the Urban Cabin Studios in South Minneapolis with this special interview. So, on Socialist News and Views, we let folks introduce themselves. Do you want to just tell our audience who you are?
Hello, my name is Addison Linghorst. I'm a socialist activist in Milwaukee. I'm an educator in training up here, but I also led a high school student walkout when I was in high school, and I've kind of been in activist spaces ever since. Let's get into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you could be here. I just recently read an article, Wave of Walkouts, Republican governors target teachers' unions as students fight back against ICE, which you wrote for the International Organizer Substack. It was published April 9th. What did you find out about, as you say in the article, the explosion of walkouts against Trump's immigration policy? And what did you find out about the crackdown since the protests, and where are we at right now?
Yeah, so the walkouts happening across the country really are happening in just about every major city in the U.S., which is super, super exciting that there's this real grassroots energy everywhere.
It is. It's not even barely making the news because there's so much other stuff making the news, but I do see it through other ways sometimes, including this article. It's super cool to see that things are happening, and things are happening all over the place. Actually, I was just saying today, not to interject too much, but I was just saying today that every day I feel like I hear about a new organization that's doing cool things, made up of just a bunch of people doing really hard work, and I'm like, wow, I never even heard of that organization until today. So anyway, yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah. And there's so much organizing that we just don't hear about, especially with student walkouts.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stuff doesn't make the news at all.
Mm-hmm.
Half the walkouts in Milwaukee haven't been covered by any news organization, including the local press. This is stuff that I'm just finding out because I'm here,
Right.
and because I know some of the people organizing this stuff. But there's so much that we just don't know about because the news doesn't consider it a priority to report about. Which is why independent journalism is so important, and
Exactly.
why being active in your communities is so important. So because this is a national grassroots movement, with students doing organizing literally everywhere, there's been sort of a lot of different approaches that have been taken. By student activists in various places. And part of that's based on what resources students have access to.
Right.
A lot of students don't know that they can just go and talk to the teachers union that represents their district. That's not instinctive in the way that some other organizing tactics are very instinctive to students. It certainly wasn't obvious to me when I was organizing a walkout when I was 18.
I was just gonna say the same thing. That wasn't something I was thinking of. Although, I mean, to be honest, I didn't even really think of it that much until you just mentioned it. To be honest, I mean, that they would go and just initiate that themselves, would be certainly possible, but not not necessarily what everybody would do. So yeah, super cool.
Yeah. And that kind of organizing is necessary. But it is sort of instinctive to a lot of student activists to go and look at past examples of student walkouts, which is why the student walkout as a tactic is so powerful and has such deep roots in the US, especially because we're able to look at all of these past struggles led by people like us. The walkouts that are happening now are inspired by walkouts that happened 5, 10, 15 years ago. There's a walkout that was led at my high school, my former high school, just this past year, this semester. And that walkout was directly inspired by conversations around the walkout that I had led like 5 years ago, and sort of directly came out of conversations with students that I didn't even know back then. Like talking about what had happened and like learning some of the lessons from that. I was inspired in 2022 by the walkouts for queer rights in Florida, in the fallout from the Don't Say Gay law. And those students were directly inspired by the Parkland walkouts.
Right.
So like we've got this like really direct history that actually goes all the way back to like the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, and even beyond that, to like its earliest roots in the labor movement back before like school was mandatory for working class people. So it's got this like really rich history. There's a lot to learn from.
It's amazing. Yeah, I was just yeah, well, you hit on it. It's like beautiful, like all these things like keep going. I keep telling people that, like especially when they're like, you know, feeling down because like a particular action or a particular event maybe it didn't have like the impact you thought it would, or it didn't, so you know, some people, it didn't suddenly solve the whole problem, which I mean, you know, if you've been doing it for a while, you know it isn't going to, but sometimes when you do something you feel like it's going to do more than it does immediately. But again, you have to realize that stuff is like, it's like moving out like a ripple, like it's affecting other movements, it's affecting other places, and it's going to like come back to you, like, you know, with the George Floyd uprising in Minneapolis, like talking to other people that are in like Cuba or they're in other places in Latin America or in Europe, and they're seeing like George Floyd murals, or they're hearing about, you know, things people did there inspired by the George Floyd uprising, or they're asking like, how are you guys able to do it there, because we're having trouble with this or whatever. So, you know, this stuff doesn't end. Like it always is coming back up. And even like you think something, you know, is behind you, that doesn't go away. All that like learning is like it's still in there. It's still in there somewhere. You just gotta tap into it. So yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, you're totally fine. Yeah, so as far as what's going on with the crackdown on some of these walkouts, some of this is happening at like the school district administrative level, and some of this is happening at the statewide level. So at like the school administrative level, administrators are under pressure from their bosses at the state to crack down on student protests, to keep students in the classroom, even at the cost of like taking part in real things that are really affecting their communities and everyday lives. So administrators are under a lot of pressure to keep students in the classroom at all costs. And that means that administrators will just, like, if they're under enough pressure, will just suspend like 300 students at a time, which is something that we've seen in various places around the country. Administrators often aren't willing to go that far, because once you get a walkout of that size, you're under pressure from the movement.
Right.
And sometimes that can kind of counteract the movement, or sometimes the pressure that admin is under from the movement can counteract the pressure that they're under from the state level and from their supervisors. Right. That's the goal. In Virginia, in like a suburb of DC, over the last couple of months, there was a student walkout where over 300 students walked out. And then that week, over 300 students, like those same 300 students got suspended for walking out, and then they walked out again.
Yeah, right.
And that second walkout didn't result in suspensions, as far as I'm aware, as what was reported on. It's like the movement was willing to push past even that setback and push further, which is so exciting and so inspiring to see.
It is. It totally is. And also, like, you know, yeah, I was at something today, and just like when you can actually like deal with an issue that arose like in the moment with the like movement that you have there to like make sure that it gets resolved before you like just that I saw an example of that today, just, you know, anyway, with like somebody getting like singled out in like a group, whatever, for something, and then like the group was kind of like, no, that's not appropriate. Like we gotta fix that first before we even do anything else. So yeah, it's amazing, you know, what a huge movement can do. And I know I have been organized around student walkout stuff for a long time, but I organized around anti-war student walkout stuff sometime back. Actually, it was like just after I got out of high school, actually. And I know then at least like they were getting the county, the municipality, whatever, was actually getting like money per like student that was like literally in the thing. So I mean, it does have like an immediate actual like cost to them for students to not be in the school. So I mean, just to make it clear, like, I think sometimes people ask like, well, how are they pressure? Like, what's the pressure? There is like ultimately like there is an economic cost to the potentially to the municipality of the district or whatever. So yeah, so they do have a potential to wield a lot of power. And of course, people in high school, at least a good chunk of them cannot vote in elections, but of course are affected by all this stuff. So again, how are you going to use your voice to, to hold people accountable and this kind of thing, right? So yeah. So
Absolutely.
where are we, people are still under threat, right? They're still being, I mean, I even saw a video. I mean, this was during one of the walkouts where was that the one where like the police chief or somebody like threw a girl on the ground or something at a walkout? I think that was like on the East Coast a while back. And like, yeah, it's some crazy stuff they've been doing to people because again, like I said, it is an effective tactic. So that's why they are so, so strongly against it. So
yeah, they're afraid of us because we have power.
Exactly. Is there other stuff people should know about where things are at now, or where I think there was something about them backing down a little bit on some stuff. I don't know. Is there any sign that they're I know you mentioned that second walkout was a good tactic. Are there any other tactics we're seeing there, or?
So there's some stuff that I talk about the article, or
yeah,
there's some stuff that I talk about in the article. It's like examples of where the movement is going farther and making really positive steps.
Right.
And some examples of setbacks, and some of those kind of overlap. In California, there was a teacher who was fired within like an hour of like opening a gate for students who were walking out, because the students were literally trying to jump over the gate and were hurting themselves. And he was like, absolutely not. I will like open this gate for you so you can walk out safely.
Right. As you would do if you're a teacher. Yeah.
Exactly. Safety of students comes first, always.
Yeah.
So he was let go and like within an hour of that incident. And like his students and his community are fighting for him to be reinstated. Awesome. There's an organization that has started a job defense campaign alongside student activists and activists in the community. They're organizing more walkouts, nice. Including, I think, one this week. Don't quote me on that. Sure. I believe also one on May Day, which is very exciting.
That is exciting.
The fact that so much of the movement is aligning student walkouts with May Day and with wider community actions on May Day is super, super exciting to have one day where like we are, if this goes right, we are going to see mass action on like a real national level to push back against the Trump regime. It's incredibly exciting. That has a lot of power.
It is.
Especially when Trump is kind of on the back foot with everything that's been going on, everything that's sort of radiated out of Minneapolis over the last few months.
Yeah, it is. It's really exciting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he's got a lot of stuff that he's dealing with right now for sure. Donald Trump. The thing that's really exciting, as you were mentioning, is the power that people have. I was mentioning before about the in the moment doing things, and how how much power you actually do have to do things even that aren't just like the goals of what you're doing. If you stick together, I think sticking together and showing solidarity is like a big piece of that. I was going to say, I was also excited to see like some of the workers organizing, like I think like Starbucks workers and stuff like that. When they first started organizing, like the first thing they did was like go on strike as like one of their first actions. Like, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, a lot of those places, they've been going around and around for a while. It's not like they've never had a chance to have a conversation with their workers about what's going on. So, I mean, if you get to that point, it makes sense to me to go right out the gate with some serious action. And the same thing here. Obviously, your neighbors and people you care about are getting dragged out of their homes. Yeah, I don't know. Was there anything else you were gonna say on that, or should we?
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going.
Sure. So one of the things that is sort of dangerous about where the movement is that in most places there's been kind of an artificial wall set up between teachers and teachers unions and student activists. Really, all of us need to be on the same side here if we're going to win. These attacks from the Trump administration are affecting everyone in our community. They are affecting our students, our unions. Like this stuff has a real impact beyond just like the immediate and the obvious effects. The right wing has had a long-term project of doing away with teachers' unions and public sector unions, and those unions are very, very much under threat. In Wisconsin, sort of started with Scott Walker's Act 10, which sort of like whittled down the rights of public sector unions and particularly hit teachers unions really hard. And then that was followed by very similar legislation across a lot of the country. In Florida, Ron DeSantis is trying to do a lot of that like same stuff where he's making it harder for teachers to unionize and to keep their unions, and is sort of continuing to whittle away those rights. So in Florida right now, while the teachers unions are under attack, and specifically are under attack for like allegedly helping student walkouts. I don't know if that's substantiated or not. While they're under attack for that, the teachers union is issuing statements along the lines of like, we don't support the student walkouts. We need students to stay in classrooms, sort of distancing itself from this movement that is like affecting them and their communities and their students. And it is putting up this artificial wall between them on one side and like their activist students and the rest of their communities who are actively in danger on the other. And it's creating this like artificial like lack of solidarity between like the communities they work for and work alongside and the unions. And that's really not what we need right now. No. And the movement is so much stronger when we're united. It's so much stronger when we're together. They can't stop all of us. And it is really, really important to have organizers in like across multiple sectors in the schools as students and as teachers and in the community. And it's really important for those struggles to link up, or they can just section off like each portion of the movement and sort of like defeat one at a time.
And they do.
And they do.
A lot of times. They find a way to do it one way or another, and then we have to regroup, and then all that. But yeah,
it's really dangerous. What we need right now is solidarity.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean that's when I'm a nurse. I'm not in the nurses union currently. I'm doing some stuff in the community in a consultant role or whatever. But when I was in the union, the biggest thing I was trying to do was like make the connections with the community, like when they were closing hospitals and things like that, trying to link up. Like, I mean, these are the hospitals that people have to go to that are in that community. So it seems to me like they would be the obvious, like most immediate allies in place that people would like, be very interested in that not closing. I mean, I'm in Minneapolis. You're in Milwaukee. People have seen what's been going on in Minneapolis for a while. I think with Operation Metro Surge, Trump's Operation Metro Surge, it's taken on definitely a more, at least more hidden or more like latent phase or whatever you want to call it right now. But there's some high profile ones here and there still going on. What else is going on over your way? What do people need to know about Milwaukee, about the city? Anything else that's happening over there right now? As far as building a better future, building a brighter future.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most exciting things happening in Milwaukee right now is yes, like the student walkouts, but also like the character that those have taken is very different in Milwaukee than it is most places. In Milwaukee, students have an organic connection to like activist organizations with real roots in our community.
Nice.
Wisconsin is home to one of the biggest immigrants' rights organizations outside of the Southwest. They're called Voces de la Frontera. They've been doing a lot of really, really exciting work along the lines of immigrants' rights for a very long time. I've been a member for a bit and have been doing a lot of organizing work sort of alongside them on and off.
Fantastic.
And yeah, and they have like student organizations within the schools, like student clubs that students can be a part of as activists, advocating for their like school communities and for their wider communities within this already established space. So that structure is really important because it links them up with other activists in their communities, and sort of creates those links in a real way that just like aren't accessible for most students.
Right.
I remember being in high school being like a lone activist looking for any connection I could possibly find.
Right.
Milwaukee students have it right there in their classrooms, which is so exciting. And students in Milwaukee also have a teachers union that works alongside them in many cases, and fights alongside them for a lot of the same issues. And student activists work with the teachers union. It's sort of this like two-way relationship, which is like very, very, very exciting to see as both like a former activist student and a future teacher.
Right. Exactly. That tradition
Yeah.
is super important. Yeah.
So absolutely. So students in Milwaukee are planning a like statewide, Wisconsin-wide student strike, and that's happening later this week. That's on April 24th, which is like I'm very much looking forward to this and seeing this play out and seeing the kind of momentum we're able to build for, and that action is building momentum for May Day.
Nice.
And there are going to be like a ton of May Day actions across the state and across the country. May Day, of course, has this like very militant history that's also like explicitly tied to both the labor movement and the immigrants' rights movement. Which, yeah, like May Day this year is going to be really, really, really exciting.
It's gonna be amazing. Yeah.
That's sort of the brief rundown on what's going on in Milwaukee.
That's super exciting. I really appreciate you speaking with me, talking about your article, and of course we're going to link to that article. Encourage everybody to check that out, and obviously support their local walkouts wherever they may be, however they can, whether that's I don't know, getting some snacks out, or making sure the young people have what they need out there, whatever they're doing. Basically, ask them what they need. They'll probably tell you. They probably have some things they need. Is there anything else you wanted to share before you go?
Let's see. Follow the International Organizer on Substack. Like, we're a very, very, very new publication, but we've been trying to put out articles like this, sort of taking in what's happening around the country and around the world and sort of compiling it, so that you're getting analysis from like things that are happening everywhere, sort of in one place, so we can sort of collectively learn the lessons from what's been going on, trying to make predictions about where things are going, and trying to like hopefully kind of point the direction forward for the movement, and give like solid analysis of what can be done to fight back.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like y'all are doing a great job. I've seen a lot of stuff come out. I'm as soon as I get off of this, I'm gonna be like furiously working on my Substack. I could like it's hard enough for me to get out my one Substack little newsletter I get out a month. So I see over at the International Organizer just all this stuff coming out, and I'm like, wow, how are they getting all this stuff out over there? So yeah, y'all are doing a lot of good work. Well, I really appreciate the time, and I will share this with you when I have everything up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And that was our special interview. Thanks for listening, watching, tuning in. Solidarity.
This has been a Socialist News and Views special interview.